Good morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. PsychicTarot.ca, book your tarot reading and unlock your spiritual journey. And the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids and cubs, and welcome to Season 6 and Episode 908 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Oh, Canada, always 100% Canadian, and always Beaverific. Today, recording day is Tuesday, May 19th, 2026. And unfortunately, it is a gray and rainy day here at the Beaver Lodge. Well, actually, not so much rainy right now, but it has rained. The two rain barrels we just put out are completely full. So it rained out a lot. But it is sunny inside, of course, because it is a very special day here. And I'm realizing that I am showing a lot of chest hair. Actually, let me fix that right there. It's it's a very special day here at the Beaver Lodge because, well, yours truly is allegedly 1 year wiser. Not sure if that's actually true, but allegedly. Yes, indeed. After a whole weekend of celebrating my Beaver Sweetie's birthday, it is now time for mine, and I'm just too damn tired. Oh, my word. My Beaver Sweetie's been asking me all weekend, so what do you want to do for your birthday? What do you want to do for your birthday? And it's like, I haven't had a second to think about it. One, just because, well, you've been following the show, right? Guest for 10 days, going through a very, uh, demanding, for him in particular, emotional situation. Then, having the house painted and then people coming with the furnace and then throwing a party for my sweetie and then getting ready to receive family, which we've had for the last 2 days. I'm pooped. And as you all know, I'm a bit of an introvert, so I'm like really peopled out. So it's like the thought of having another wave of people coming in today. It's like, maybe not what I want to do for my birthday on the day of my birthday, but I would like to do something at some point. So, but yeah, I think today there might not be that much celebration. I have cake, but I think if celebration there is to be, it is going to be maybe this coming weekend instead. Because, like I said, this beaver is tired, man. However, the the, the skin cream is holding up, doing a good job, keeping everything nice and in place. Um, uh, Apologies for not having been able to do the afternoon show as I had hoped yesterday. Um, no major significant reason in the sense that there was a big thing going on. We spent time with family, and we went out and we played beach volleyball for a couple of hours, and then went out for some ice cream. And while we were out in the sun, peak sun, on the first very hot day of the year for about 4.5 hours, and I got home and fell asleep. I, I I I stretched out on that sofa and I fell asleep like for a good while, and then when I woke up, well, it was too close to the Montreal Canadiens and Ottawa Charge games, and I didn't want to again, you know, have to force divided loyalties. So, but and then there were fireworks over here for Victoria Day, so we had that planned. So yeah, I just too much sun and I fell asleep. That's my sad excuse. It's my sad explanation, not so much an excuse explanation. Um, Beaver sweetie caught a bit of a sunburn already, back of the neck and the forehead and stuff. So it was a very powerful Sunday. Let's put it that way. Yesterday, those who are in Toronto who had it way worse because I think we only had um, I think the temperature only hit 21 base temperature, but there's certain places. I think Toronto may have gotten 9 degrees, even more, and Toronto was way more humid than it was here. So it was great. It was a good day, but yeah, for the first hot day of the year, it was particularly hot. I will say that. Thank you, everyone, with all the nice little birthday wishes. I thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, Kitland, nothing wrong with a quiet birthday at home. No, of course not. I'm not sure it would have been my first choice, but on the other hand, given that it is both of our birthdays, we really do try to, as much as possible, try to make sure that we each have a time, because at first we were always just doing it together, and at a point it kind of felt diluted a little bit having to share it. Um, so we always make sure that there's something specifically for my Beaver sweetie, and that there's something specifically for me. And then when we have family, well, of course, it's going to be for both of us and that type of stuff. And even on when we did my Beaver sweetie's birthday party, even though his friends are my friends, and we celebrated both of us. I was dutifully in the kitchen, making sure that people were fed and watered, while my Beaver sweetie graciously entertained, and most of the attention was on him, and he made the invite list and all that kind of stuff. So, it's really just trying to make sure that we each have our little moment, because birthdays are special. I mean, you're celebrating the day you decided to grace the earth with your presence, right? As a queen should. Say I with all the humility Pierre Polyev has for himself. No, I'm kidding. Oh my God. I still can't believe he said that. I say that with great humility. Oh my God. Funny. Okay. Sorry. I sometimes things pop into my head and I make myself laugh. I'm a constant source of amusement for myself. Oh my word. Um, let's see, Kitland, I'm picturing Douglas filling up a watering trough in the living room. Oh my God. Indeed, indeed. Oh my word. So yeah, but yes, there will, trust me, there will be celebrating. But in a way, it's sort of like, because even though we tried to have him have his moment, and but I did get celebrated along the way. I don't feel like I basically feel like I'm getting 2 weekends of birthday and celebration. I got a little bit of attention. There are some gifts that came because, well, the family's not going to come back 2 weeks in a row, right? So that they were dropped off. So there was when we celebrated, I did make sure I had my little gluten-free cake so that I could have cake and partake, and all that kind of stuff. So it's not completely excluding it. So I feel like I have been celebrating already a little bit. So then I get a little pause to refresh, and then come back for part two with a little more gusto. That's how I choose to see it. So, but yeah, I'm the beaver is a little pooped. So back in my 20s I could party every day, but now I need a couple of days rest in between, to replenish and hydrate, of course. Mm, all right. Oh, okay. I just knocked a little something there. Ah, kits and cubs. Um, so thank you so much for the birthday wishes. Oh, I don't know why that little thing is up there. All right. Yeah, the thing has been uh, apologies for the weird stuff. Like it even has Paul's name on the thing. The restream was acting a little weird. Everything was slower this morning, and then I had to reboot it. And when I rebooted it, when I came in, the show kind of started itself, but without broadcasting live, and I couldn't stop the credits, so from going. So I had to find a way to exit the studio in such a way that the credits would automatically start and I can get back to my start screen, which was not as obvious as one would think, actually. You think it would just be exiting and coming back in, but no, there was another step somehow for some reason. And don't ask me how I figured it out, because um, well, I guess the more that I'm doing this, I'm moving further away from Luddite status. But I'm learning. Uh, yeah, this old beaver is learning new tricks. Let's put it that way. But yeah, was able to resolve the issue, and now we are all together, and I love it. So, and oh, Kid Bucky. Speaking of amusing oneself, do you ever make a funny comment in the morning and then see it later that day and laugh? Yes. Yes, yes. Guilty as charged. Yes. Oh my god. Sometimes, I mean, like my beaver sweetie and I are just talking. At one point, I like just say something like funny, and then I just laugh at my own joke. I am doubling over, and he's looking at me like I'm just weird, which I am, in fairness. But yeah, yeah. It does happen. All right. Oh, let's see. A big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Pipper Masters, the Mystery Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and psychictarot.ca. Of course, Kids and Cubs, how's your mental health today? Mine, clearly, doing very well. Usually is on my birthday. Um, there are 2 days of the year that are very important for me, Canada Day 1 and my birthday 2. Those are the only 2 that really matter. All the others are, whether they're observed or not, is fine by me. But those 2, I make a point of. Because, your birthday is the only day that it is legitimately all about you. The other 364 days of the year, I pretend it's all about me, but but today's the day. Today's the day. I want a little loving, I want a little attention, and I want a little me. So, yeah, they are my 2 favorite days, and, hey, last year, I started off my birthday, in the hospital, uh, getting, some scans and stuff and coming out with a boot on my foot, so already it's better. Just saying. All right. So, yeah, my mental health is great. Great. My feet are working fine. I'm happy. And I hope yours is too. There is a lot to talk about, and I'm actually uh, slightly overwhelmed with the content, and having missed a couple of days last week. News piled up that I want to touch upon, but like more is coming in, so it's kind of hard to figure out how to divide it. So if with the things that I'm talking about today, if I am behind the times because I know there's that thing with Ambassador Fuckface uh, that seems to be linked to the whole Alberta stuff and the list leak. And I know that the United States has decided to punch itself in the dick by thinking it's going to threaten us. Um, by pulling away from something defense, and that this is, probably some move to try to give conservatives an issue to say, "Oh my God, Mark Carney is ruining us." Um, all that is happening. I'm aware of it. I will attempt to address it at some point. But there is a lot of stuff that has happened that we missed in the week that we had to cancel a few episodes, and one of them was the fact that the prime minister, and we alluded to it a little bit yesterday, was coming out with some new regulations with regard to projects and a big announcement on doubling the electricity grid. So we're going to try and touch on those today. But before we start, yesterday I was mentioning that there had been an interview with the chief, I think it is, of the Chippewa Nation, Alberta at least, Chippewa Nation. Adam Allan, his name is. And I wanted to bring some of this to you because the decision came down, and we had the decision of the judge, who I may have learned yesterday. I may have made an assumption because I saw the name Shayna Leonard, and I assumed that Shayna was a woman's name, but apparently uh, I heard uh, male pronouns. So there is a good possibility that the judge is male. And I referred to him all episode long yesterday as female. Um, so there you go. Gentle correction upon myself. But we heard their perspective. We heard the perspective, of course, of the separatist and Jeffrey Rath. People should really start writing his name with a W instead. So I tried to avoid interviews with him as much as possible, but I did watch one. Uh, what a dick! I'm just saying, what a dick! Wow. Um, yeah, uh, the interaction with the person interviewing, who I have to say, and I wish I'd caught his name, did a really excellent job when he noticed what the game was going on and how he was framing his questions in order to try to create. Um, to show the audience that there's absolutely no reason for this person to be behaving in such an aggressive manner. Um, Maybe didn't help Mr. Rath's uh, social comportment during that interview. That the person who was had been assigned to interview him was not of oh, how should I put it delicately? Not as the same race as Mr. Rath. Not sure if that has anything to do with it, but as far as I'm concerned, I can't necessarily rule it out with all the negative talk about immigrants. So not sure if that was part of the dynamic or whether or not he's just a generalized prick. But wow, that was not a um it was needlessly aggressive and forceful. Let's just put it that way. Um, but yeah, we are not talking about people who are tethered to reality here. Just not. Um, and then we got to Danielle Smith's opinion, and I put it in between skippy air quotes because, um, again, how can you assume that there is an error in law and uh, that this is undemocratic? I mean, you went to a judicial process and you lost. The judicial process for which our democracy provides, and you lost on merit, on grounds. It's funny how that merit principle the conservatives talk about always disappears when they lose. But you lost on merit. There's an appeal process. Again, not sure particularly how Danielle Smith will have any standing to appeal because she keeps on saying, well, this was a citizen initiative and we have to give these people this voice. Well, if it's a citizen initiative, then, what's your case as a government going to appeal a decision that said that this petition drive that was operated by this group and appears to have been operated not in exactly a totally legal way, investigation pending. What standing have you there? So when she says we're going to appeal, I'm not sure if that was a Freudian slip where she was including herself in the we, because, Marlena the Manchurian appears not to be on Team Canada, even though the lady doth protest, perhaps way too much, by claiming she is. Just saying. We can't say for sure, but, well, there is behavior that appears to be much more consistent with favoring one side than the other, and the excuse that, she just wants the democratic exercise to take place and people's voices to be heard, we know is, buffalo fecal matter, given that we have past incidences of people having expressed their democratic will, and, she, the human bulldozer, just overrode that. So clearly it's not about democracy or free speech or, letting people express themselves. Come on, just ask transgender children how she feels about letting everybody express themselves. Right? So we know it's not about that. We know it's not about that, because if it was about that, there would be consistent behavior across the board. So, but one perspective, interestingly, that didn't get as much attention as all of them, because, of course, it bleeds when it leads and they're going to continue the fight, is the perspective of the people that actually brought this case to court. Right? So in all of that hubbub, there's like one interview here and there with the people who brought this to court. And I thought that maybe with, our platform that we have here, maybe it would be a good idea to at least bring that a little bit forward so that more people can hear what this is about. So here we have here Mr. Allan on CBC's Power and Politics with David Cochran. And again, I wish I knew how to get this full screen. Oh, maybe is this it? Nope, that's not it either. Okay, I saw something that said maximize and minimize, but I don't. I'm going to have to try to look up how to get these things full screen so it can be a little bigger for us. But here it is. And yeah, I just thought, it was a good idea to bring this perspective and assure that it gets a little bit more distributed.
For more on this, we are joined now by Chief Allan Adam from the Athabasca Chipewyan First Nation, which was one of the groups that brought this case. Chief Adam, it's good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us today, sir.
Thank you for having me on the air.
Well, what is your reaction to this decision and the Premier's description of it as incorrect and undemocratic?
It's a good win for Canada. It's a good win for Albertans. It is a democratic process because that's what the Constitution is there for, to fight for your right and to be heard in the court of law. And as long as that takes place and the ruling comes down because you put your points forward, the Alberta government nor anybody or Mitch Sylvester or anybody came and consulted with the First Nations in regards to them leaving Canada. And this sends a clear message to every agency out there, if the separatists have no grounds to leave because they didn't consult with the First Nations, Canada, made announcements that, their consultation policy will reflect to 120 days when it comes to First Nations. I think you should relook at that. The Alberta government also, we're going to intervene in a court case on consultation, right, because they deem that consultation is so. It's a great victory for everybody that believe in Canada and democracy, because it's Danielle Smith's call from here, and if she's going to appeal, does that mean that she is a separatist government?
Well, I think her argument essentially is that the judge ruled that they made an error, right, in the way they did the law and the process. It happened. It failed to do the duty to consult, and that is a duty that the government bears, as you well know. I'm not trying to explain this to you. I'm just trying to fill in the blanks on the decision for people at home. So they're going to appeal it on that point, is what it sounds like. So what are your thoughts there, that this legal victory may very well be the start of a series of other legal challenges with the intention of still getting this somehow back on the ballot in October?
I still think it's a great victory, but if you want to show true leadership, you want to show grit, here's an opportunity for Premier Smith and Canada, along with the First Nations, to sit down and start building this country and start developing, some of the resources, not some, but the majority of the resources that we have on our traditional territories, where First Nations will also be beneficiary to the wealth that's going to be coming out of their traditional territories, because, of the conditions that we are under right now, underfunded. Here's a perfect opportunity to build Canadians and Albertans, along with First Nations alike, regardless if you're here in Alberta or else across the country.
But do you think this settles it, Chief? Because it sounds like what we're hearing from the separatist groups is they disagree with this decision. They will launch a challenge. The Premier will meet with her cabinet. They will launch a challenge. There was hundreds of thousands of people signed petitions to try to get this referendum on the ballot in October. And now, a challenge by First Nations, sided with by a judge, is going to thwart what they see as a legitimate democratic process. So what do you anticipate the political fallout in Alberta could be to the way this has come about, sir?
The decisions by the court just confirms everyone that treaty is signed under sovereign protection. And we as First Nations are sovereign people, because we have our own identity, we have our own culture, and we do live according to prior to colonial contact, although we do adapt today's standards as well. And, that's just the way it is. And we are still satisfied. And like I said, it's an opportunity for all government levels to work together to build this country, because what is happening here in Alberta is going to destroy our economy, and it's going to chase investors away for a long time.
So on that point, and just as a final point, Chief, the Prime Minister is going to be there Friday. All of our information is that him and Danielle Smith have pretty much finalized their agreement on the memorandum of understanding that could potentially lead to a pipeline project at minimum being proposed in the province of Alberta to get to the BC coast. How do these issues come together, in your view? The push on the court decision on the sovereignty referendum, the inevitable reaction we're going to get, and this resource development push that we're also seeing between the two levels of government. Sorry, I see your cameras flipping around on you there, Chief Adam. That happens, man. Technology and live TV. You look great. Just go with it, sir. Just your thoughts on that.
Just say that again, like say it again in regards to whatever. Like I thought I put my phone on not disturb.
Yeah, I got you,
Say it
man.
again and I will answer.
The Prime Minister is going to be there to finalize a memorandum of understanding on Friday with the Premier of Alberta. How do you see this decision, the pipeline push, and the sovereignty fight coming together when the Prime Minister comes to the province at the end of the week?
Well, I just basically said it straight out. Here's an opportunity for nation building by people and everything and stuff like that. And, it's
Busy.
get it. I'm doing an interview.
Okay, I'll come back to.
That's how everyone at home knows it's live, Chief. We're not faking it here. This is not AI.
No, it's not AI. This is reality. And I'm sorry that it had to happen, but
Okay.
But in reality, we have to work together. My advice to Danielle Smith is that, it's take the high road and let's build this country and work together instead of appealing the process, because it ain't going to help anybody.
Right.
It's democratic. There's no need to go down this process if you're going to appeal. If you're going to appeal, we will appeal. What would it appeal to? So come to terms, and a true leader will sit down and talk to leaders and resolve these issues. And if she's sitting down with Canada, then Canada and Alberta, both Carney, who is the Prime Minister, and Premier Smith, both have to sit down with First Nations leaders, because we are talking about the traditional territories in regards to all the discussions that are going on. We are affected, and the Constitution is being affected, and the courts just proved it, that we are protected under the Canadian Constitution.
Well, Chief Allan Adam from the Athabasca Chipewyan First Nation, we're going to let you go. Clearly, you got some people who want to talk to you. I want to thank you for taking the time to talk to us. We appreciate it, sir.
It's a great day today to be Canadian and an Albertan here. So take it for what it's worth, and it's an opportunity if you want to do great stuff with it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir.
All right. So yeah, a little technological stuff. The fact that it happens on news shows of that caliber and quality makes me feel not as bad when it happens here. Did you love that little pause and then a smile before the chief took the time to answer that first question? I love that. Kid Bucky here said, when training for hosting talks, we were taught it is not. We were taught is not. So let me see here. Sorry. When training for hosting talks, what we were taught is to not automatically jump in to fill spaces in the conversation. The chief's thoughtful pause before speaking is a good illustration why. Indeed. Indeed. And Kit Linda here stating here, he's absolutely right. This is nation to nation business and should be handled that way. In this discussion, when we're talking about treaties and all that kind of stuff, right? The people who want to be able to bulldoze all over their land keep on saying that the treaties mean that they ceded the land. Indigenous people have a different take on that. It was never about ceding the land. It was the terms upon which they were agreeing to share the land. So, those are certain arguments that show up in court. And of course, in court, what matters was the intent at the time that the treaties or wampums, at the time, if that may be the case, at the time those were signed and developed. Right? So that's a primary thing, and that's a reality that the people that would like to say that they can pull, they can leave Alberta, pull the ground and everything under it with them and take it with them. That's what they want you to believe, that no, this was surrendered, and therefore this now belongs to Alberta. It's like, no, if it was surrendered, if it had been surrendered, it would have been surrendered to the Crown prior to there ever being an Alberta. right? So legally, that again sounds good for people who don't want to stop and think about it. Well, yeah, they ceded it, so therefore we can do what we want with it now. It's hard. No, that's not exactly what happened here. There's a good piece here by Jeremy Apple, who is setting himself up to be Canada's Journalist of the Year this year, much like Kerry Tate was last year, based on the quality of his work and just happening to be in the right place at the right time as things are happening. And oddly enough, somehow becoming part of the story, even though journalists are not supposed to, right? He was just there covering the event at which Jason Kenney's information was docked and the crime was committed and recorded and placed on the web for literally the world to see. And then wrote about it. And so just like Kerry Tate just happened to be being surveilled and found out about it and then ended up becoming part of the story, even though that was never her intent. So this seems to be happening a lot in Alberta for some reason. Again, there's something about Alberta. Just have to say it. This story here says an Alberta court has sided with First Nations opposing a petition to hold a separatist referendum in the province until a decision is reached in the constitutional challenge. On April 10, Court of King's Bench Alberta Justice Shayna Leonard ruled in favor of Athabasca Chipewyan First Nation and the Blackfoot Confederacy. By the way, Kit Linda, thank you for saying that everything that you had read referred to Justice Leonard as female. I actually went to check, and like photos and everything definitely is. I do not know why that interview I saw. So we had it right. The interview I saw, where the person was referring to the justice as male, did not have it correct, and I doubted myself, and therefore the gentle correction was not necessary. It would appear. But thank you for making me doubt my own doubt, Kit Linda, so that I would go and check. Because I just assumed, the person making the comment was from Alberta and has a certain knowledge of the law. So I just deferred rather than check. And there you go. See, always check. Always check. Even if you defer, check. She granted a stay in certifying the petition, which proponents say has already surpassed its required 177,800 signature threshold to spark a referendum to leave Canada. But Leonard emphasized that separatist organization Stay Free Alberta can continue collecting signatures for its referendum petition and that her decision has no impact whatsoever on its May 2nd deadline. Specifically, the Chief Electoral Officer shall not certify the petition results or make a referral to the Minister of Justice until the court has ruled on the application by the ACFN and the Blackfoot Nation, she wrote. Now let's see, what's this here? This is from actually earlier Kits and Cubs, by the way. This is something that led up to this. I'm sorry, I should have put that in the context. This is from April 20th. So this is not about the decision. This is on the way there. And this did not get a lot of attention. That's why I'm bringing it to you. So this was before the May 2nd deadline, right? As the case was being argued, not the decision itself. The citizen-led petition to hold a referendum vote led by Stay Free Alberta calls for the province to become its, quote, own sovereign country. Its proposed question for voters, quote, do you agree that the province of Alberta should cease to be part of Canada to become an independent state? But multiple First Nations are challenging the province in court for changing its laws to enable the referendum after another judge ruled it would be unconstitutional and violate Treaties 6, 7, and 8. Those treaties were signed with the federal crown between 1875 and 1899, predating the existence of Alberta. The plaintiffs argue that since the province isn't a party to treaties, it cannot alter them without First Nations consent. In their lawsuits, the ACFN and the Kainai, Piikani, and Siksika bands of the Blackfoot Confederacy named as respondents. There's a word missing here. Confederacy named as respondents to the provincial crown, I'm going to guess here, the Chief Electoral Officer of Alberta and Stay Free Alberta CEO Mitch Sylvester. Their arguments were heard on April 8th and 9th. Quote, while Ottawa sleeps, Alberta's first inhabitants are doing everything we can to save Confederation, said ACFN Chief Allan Adam in a news release welcoming Leonard's decision. Quote, we shall never allow our treaties to be broken, and we will never bend the knee to foreign tyrants or their useful idiots. Separatist leaders have met with, quote, U.S. State Department officials 3 times to request support from President Donald Trump, who has advocated annexing, quote, Canada, the Financial Times reported in January. Among them was lawyer Jeffrey Rath, who represented Stay Free Alberta's Sylvester in court last week. Rath told right-wing YouTuber Rachel Parker in March 2025 that he would like to see Alberta become EU-US territory. Chief Adam emphasized in his statement that ACFN is fighting, quote, for all Albertans, especially children and youth, who deserve to grow up in a country that respects the rule of law and recognizes the supremacy of the Constitution and protected treaty rights. Quote, we are standing up for our treaties, for our people, and for the land that is all under threat through this referendum effort, he said. A day earlier, on the final day of court submissions, 3 First Nations leaders raised concerns about the perceived proximity of government and separatist lawyers. Adam of ACFN posted a photo on Facebook of Rath speaking with government lawyers, including Neil Dobson and Jennifer Kelleher, outside the courtroom. Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation Chief Sheldon Sunshine alleged that he repeatedly saw the team of lawyers enter a private room when they saw him. Quote, it's just not a good look, he said. The apparent collaboration between Rath and the provincial government lawyers reflect, quote, the cozy relationship between Premier Daniel Smith and the separatist movement, Sunshine added. And here, Kids and Cubs, since they included it in the article, why not, since we have it, show you as well. Here is the picture, it would appear, of, come on, put it up on the screen. Don't slow down now, computer. Okay, I am frozen at the moment. There we go. There is the picture of, let's get rid of this here. Look at the separatist lawyer working with Alberta lawyers here in court. They are working against us. So when the premier says she's not supporting this movement, it's all a lie. And that was a post from Chief Allan Adam about a month ago. So yeah, when they say not a good look, not a good look. If you are, if you believe in the justice system, which Daniel Smith, again, plenty of evidence to indicate that she does not, you do not show up at the courthouse to start talking to one of the interested parties. You stay above that. I'm not sure why it is the premier cannot do that. I don't know. I don't understand why it is. Well, I know why. She's a narcissist. So she has to put herself at the center of everything that is going on somehow. She has no business being there. She just literally has no business being there. So yeah, not a good look. Chief Adam said the provincial government should, quote, completely stay neutral from the separatist legal advisors, likening the separatist movement, quote, to some kind of a cult. Quote, when you see the representatives that are supporting the separation movement, and then you've got the province of Alberta lawyers standing beside, hand in hand, talking about what's going on, what does that tell you? Asked Adam. Meanwhile, Sunshine and Mikisew Cree First Nation Chief Billy Joe Tucaro issued a statement focused on their shared concern that even if the independence referendum is halted in court, Premier Smith might put it on the ballot in October anyway. She will. On April 7th, the court heard arguments from the SLCN. SLCN, can't remember what that is. Sorry, I need to go back and check for you, Kids and Cubs. And I do not see it in the article. Sorry. Oh, yes. Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation. There we go. On April 7th, the court heard arguments from the Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation asking for an injunction against the province's charges to the Citizens Initiative Act to permit referendum amendments the First Nation argued could violate constitutional rights, including Indigenous rights. The legislation received royal assent after an earlier decision on December 10th when Court of King's Bench Justice Colin Feasby ruled that an independence referendum couldn't proceed under the act as it was written because, quote, Alberta independence would by definition remove constitutional protections. And the Missikiw, Sunshine and Missikiw Cree First Nation, is that one? Yes, the Sunshine and Mikisew Cree First Nation had also filed a lawsuit against what it called the province's referendum regime, and which will be heard at a later date. Quote, in and out of court, we have watched Alberta's lawyers openly collaborate with separatist lawyers, reads the April 9th statement from Chiefs Sunshine and Tucaro. Now it has come to our attention that the Premier will conspire to call the referendum at the demand of the separatist. And as we mentioned, the petition, at least from the Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation, in that decision that was rendered, had been denied. Inside the courtroom, lawyer Mary McCauley, representing the Piikani Nation, argued that the chief electoral officer had, quote, a duty to consult the First Nations whose treaty rights would be impacted by an independence referendum because he was acting on behalf of the Crown. Quote, the duty to consult arises before a decision is made, she said. Paul Reed, another lawyer for the Blackfoot Confederacy, argued that McClure should have declared the sections of the Citizens Initiative Act that enabled him to approve the separatist petition constitutionally defective. So, Danielle Smith, when she's talking about it, she says, well, there's no way that this citizens group would have had the means to fulfill a duty to consult with Indigenous people on their petition. That wasn't what the case was about. That's one of those things that Danielle Smith does. Takes the decision but associates it with something that it is not about. And then you have to go and check. The argument here is that if this type of petition drive has to function under the auspices of rules that are set out by Elections Alberta, and the terms of the petition violate treaty rights, violate the Constitution, and you have a decision of the court that said that yes, it does, which Danielle Smith then decided to disregard by changing the law. There is a duty on behalf of the Chief of Elections, the Chief Electoral Officer for Elections Alberta, because they do represent the Crown. That's where the duty to consult lies. Not with the people doing the petition drive, but the people who are giving permission for that petition drive to take place under the law, and the people who will be authenticating it and deeming it valid. That's where the duty to consult lied. Forever Canadian didn't need to do that because their petition was to keep Canada together, which wouldn't violate treaty rights. But the separatist groups want Alberta to leave Canada. Jeffrey Rath would like it to become a U.S. State or dependency or colony or whatever, protectorate or whatever it is, but just be absorbed in. I guess believing that they can take the land and everything under it with him, which explains why those separatists really do not want that pipeline. Really don't want that pipeline. They are very, very upset that Danielle Smith signed that agreement with Mark Carney. She overstepped her authority, they believe, and she needs to be reined in because the separatists, absolutely, if they want Alberta and everything on it and under it to become American, they certainly have no interest in a pipeline going west where the oil would not go south. Now, do they? Government lawyer Dobson argued that there's no duty to consult at this point in the referendum process because there's no guarantee a referendum will occur. Quote, the only issue that's under review here is the decision to allow the collection of the signatures, he said. What harm is the collection of signatures? This is another thing that side does, is they break things down into smaller and smaller pieces to make that thing. Hey, we're not doing anything. We're just asking questions. Hey, what harm is it? We're collecting signatures. That's all we're doing. There's nothing wrong with collecting signatures now. To what end are you collecting signatures? They want you to divorce the end for which they are collecting the signatures to the act of collecting signatures itself. We don't have to consult them on collecting signatures. That's only where we are at now. The end apparently does not matter at this point, which is silly. Of course, the end matters. I only bought this explosive material. Yeah. It was for the purposes of creating a bomb where I would have done an act of domestic terrorism. But right now, all I've done is purchase the materials. That's why we made illegal purchasing some of the materials, because people were trying that argument. Okay, fine. We'll make it explicitly illegal. It's right. Do we have to pass a law that says that it is expressly forbidden to collect signatures for the purposes of breaking up the country and violating treaty rights? Or is that just implied here? Right. Lawyer Rath of Stay Free Alberta told the court that the petition is, quote, nothing more than a legislatively mandated process of communication between the citizens of Alberta and their elected officials in the legislature. Oh my God. Wow. That's a way to torture and torque reality. Selectively choose what it is from reality while pushing the other stuff aside in order to be able to create this very filtered out um, concept of an argument. It's nothing more than a legislatively mandated. We have to do this. It's a process of communication between the citizens of Alberta and their elected officials. We're signing the petition to let our officials know we want this. It will violate the Constitution 3 ways from Sunday, and ignore all these rights, and make all these people's life more. But let's not talk about that right now. Let's not talk about that right now. It's just a process of communication between the citizens and the elected officials. And we have to do it. These people, man. Quote, nobody's rights have been suspended. Nobody's rights have been infringed, even the smallest, tiniest little bit by the gathering of signatures. Yes, but they will be much more than a tiniest little bit if the end for which those signatures have been gathered reaches its conclusion. Now, doesn't it, sir? I only have the knife in 1/4. I only have the tip of the knife in. I haven't punctured anything. It's just a little tickle. Come back to me when I go through the heart. Come on, man. These people. Echoing Dobson, he argued that the government is under no obligation to ensure that Alberta independence will make it to a referendum, even if the petitioners gathered enough signatures, because the Referendum Act only states the government may order that referendum be held. Yes. Rath told Justice Leonard that this First Nations lawyer misled you and have misstated the law when they argued that the government is obligated to proceed with the citizen-initiated referendum. The Referendum Act deals with government-initiated referendums, whereas the Citizen Initiative Act relates to referendum petitions. Ken Hill, a lawyer for the ACFN, noted in response that the Citizen Initiative Act states that the government shall refer a constitutional referendum petition to a referendum, overriding the discretion in the Referendum Act. So Jeffrey Rath just turned around and said, well, in the Referendum Act, it says that, when the referendum is proposed, the government may do it. And then they turn around, but if you look at this other one, the Citizen Initiative Act, the act under which this thing is actually being done, that one says, if something passes that, the government shall, not may. So the lawyer here, the one, who has having trouble with his law society, actually referenced the wrong law. Literally referenced the wrong law. Again, they are willing to lie, cheat, steal. They're demonstrating it with every action, every word, every utterance. They are willing to attempt to trick the court on which law is applying in this case. Oh, man. Justice Leonard said she intends to work very quickly on the First Nations request for a stay on counting the independence petition signatures, aiming to have a decision on that aspect of the case early next week. When this article was written on the 20th of April, the First Nations lawyers requested that Leonard issue her written decision before May 2nd, the deadline for the collection of signatures. Orla O'Kelly, the Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation's lawyer said in a statement that she and her client are delighted that Leonard imposed a limited pause to consider this momentous case on its merits. Quote, "We're looking forward to the court's final decision on this harmful process set in motion by Alberta without any authority under our treaty," added Chief Sunshine in the same statement. "We also expect Alberta will follow this court order and not move the goalposts on us while the court deliberates." Sir, unfortunately, all of life's disappointments stem from unmet expectations. They are duty bound to follow the court order, but with this bunch, you can't expect. You should be able to expect, but we know we can't. In order to obtain a stay, the First Nations lawyer had to demonstrate that a failure to do so would cause irreparable harm to their clients. They argued that this harm would primarily take the form of an erosion of treaty rights. Leonard emphasized that she wasn't yet ruling on whether the Crown, as represented by the province, had a duty to consult at this stage in the petition process. She did ultimately rule that way. However, she ruled that the First Nations, quote, "have provided evidence of harm from lack of consultation, harm to treaty relationships. The alleged harm is irreparable and ongoing," she wrote. In contrast, the stay sought is for a short time and only goes into effect once the petition signatures are submitted to the Chief Electoral Officer. In an interview with the Canadian press, Rath questioned how quickly Leonard reached her decision, noting that it came less than 24 hours after 3 days of arguments concluded. Quote, "I suspect that it's just going to motivate our volunteer base and our canvassers and Albertans even more to get out and sign the petition." Oh, yes, it did motivate them. Oh, boy, did it motivate them. And if what we all suspect is the case turns out to be true, it did not motivate them to do it in a manner that was entirely conform with the law. Gee. Maybe Justice Leonard was able to reach her decision that quickly because the case was so obvious. The irreparable and ongoing harm referred to was clearly obvious. And if it did motivate your volunteer base and your canvassers to get out and sign that petition, perhaps it motivated that push with that database. I'd have to go back in time and go back and see what date that meeting took place, where Mr. Kenny's information was doxed. Because if it was after the 20th or around the 20th, because the arguments were heard. Well, actually, you know what? The decision came down around the 20th. But if the case was argued earlier than that, the 7th and 8th, they could have had a good sense from the arguments how the decision was going to come down. And maybe started getting ready. Put that little database together. Calling people over. Showing them their new toy. Wow. Leonard said she intends on having a decision on whether or not the Chief Electoral Officer acted appropriately in permitting the referendum petition within the next month. All parties who have participated in this manner and the public are entitled to have this process completed as expeditiously as possible, she wrote. So there you go. That was a little bit of the background that you may have not heard when when this was covered in between. But now you have an idea of all the little tricks and games that people are using to try to make people believe that reality is something other than what it is. And that it is that treaties are not necessarily ceded land, but shared land. And they are agreements with the Crown that existed before there was even an Alberta or a government of Alberta. And therefore, a government of Alberta has no standing. And if you are going to engage in activity that eventually, if successful, is going to lead to violation of treaty without consulting those who will be most potentially adversely affected by that decision and that process, then you do not have a process. These are three very simple things that this group is working very, very hard to try to convince us are very complicated and complex. But they're not. They just don't want to follow the rules. That's what this whole thing is about, right? They know that they cannot achieve it on merit. They know that they cannot achieve it according to the rules. They've had an Alberta Independence Party or Republican Party or whatever party it is, and they don't get enough votes to get an even seat. They will never be the Parti Québécois. They will never be able to run on independence and elect enough people to the legislature to gain a mandate from the people to hold that referendum, like the Parti Québécois did. So we get petition drives gone wrong. Apparently, David Parker has temporarily exiled himself to Texas. It's just, they come up with tortured legal cases. They claim that judges are activist and undemocratic. But they don't have a case. And they don't have a mandate. And they don't have social license. And the people are not behind them. It's really by hook or by rook. Everything about the process is duplicitous and deceptive. There's no appetite for this. There's an undercurrent, yes. There's a constant undercurrent, yes, but there's no appetite for this. This is not a societal project that the majority of the people want. In fact, when it came time to sign petitions, more people signed petitions saying, why this discussion is not necessary. Right? More people signed a petition to, if we're going to have a referendum, then if we have to have a referendum, we don't want one, but if we do, then for the love of everything that is Canadian, let's at least make it on staying within Canada. There's no demand. There's two petition drives. Those who want a referendum and those who don't really want one at all. And those who didn't want one and did it legally had a much higher threshold to meet and met it. The others had a lower threshold. Not even sure if it can be verified now if they met it. Odds are they didn't, because why would you consciously make this type of decision to proceed in the way that people have chosen to proceed with that database if one was confident that they could meet the target on their own effort and they had more time? There's just no demand for this. There's no demand for this. All right. Moving on to other stuff that has happened, kids and cubs. On Friday of last week, I believe it was, the Prime Minister had a very big announcement, and how would I put it? It goes along with what he is, the whole big thing about increasing our exports to foreign nations that are not the United States. Everything about wanting to be an energy superpower, however that is defined, both in conventional and in renewables or cleaner energy. The push to want to do so in manners that increase our intellectual property that create other industries that we can that can export this knowledge and technological expertise that we are developing. And also with that, um, ensuring that we have both the infrastructure that is needed to power all this additional economic activity that we want to generate and the ability to export the resources that we are going to be extracting um, much more deliberately and with specific purpose in order to grow our economy, and also with a view to uh, not decoupling from the United States, but reducing our dependence from the United States so that we are less exposed to a single point of failure and the risk that comes with that. And of course, assert a little more sovereignty and assure our own independence. Um, so there was a big announcement. Like I said, these are a lot of objectives and goals that are being pursued at the same time, right? And when we're looking at one project or two projects here and there, um, we sometimes forget, like even if we're looking at this big MOU thing with Danielle Smith, right? Um, if we're looking at it, you know, the goal to make us an energy superpower on the more conventional side, that's there. The goal to try to do so in a manner that creates some intellectual property, that's the whole pathways thing, if it happens. And then to double the electrical grid, all the portion in that MOU that has to do with maybe perhaps adding some nuclear that has to do with increasing interties so that we have an actual east-west grid that can sustain all the activity that we are hoping to bring. The fact that we have that big investor summit coming in September, where the one type of summit where people write not one but $2 million checks, but 100, 200 million, you know, uh, 100 million, 500 million, even $1 billion checks, right? Um, all of these things are embedded in the MOU, right? It's not just the pipeline itself, even though it is the thing, right? But it's not the only thing. There are other things in that specifically that are extremely important to the overall goals that often get eliminated from the coverage when it comes to that, simply because, uh, you know, how would you put it? Well, there's one of the things here that has uh, it's the most dramatic one. It's the element. It's it's the element that has the whole debate or that whole battle between Alberta and that struggle, Alberta and Ottawa there, and in it, and so it's going to get all the attention. But there are all those other elements, right? The MOU, as Danielle Smith was describing it, was a grand bargain. Right? We have all of that. Um, at the same time, um, government of Canada, at the same time, in all of this, the government of Canada, one of the first moves that it had made uh, when it had come into power, was to pass Bill C5, which for at the time the major projects of national importance, specifically that the Prime Minister had been talking about, uh, could um, create a situation where those projects could be approved more quickly because there were certain rules or laws that were going to be um, circumvented or be permitted to be circumvented for that um, process to be able to happen. Um, now, how would you put it? That process, none of the projects that have been announced as major projects, this is a criticism that Pierre Poilievre makes, have been approved for funding under C5. They have still gone to the major projects office so that it could fulfill its purpose of trying to streamline activities and have people focus on okay, this is the issue here that we need to resolve. Let's focus this group of people on that specifically. Let's get that resolved. Let's take that thing off and let's go to the next stage because this is a particular project. Let's get more people on it and actually have them manage that process, see it all the way through with, deliberate intent rather than just like, letting it work through the system in the normal way. And of those, of course, there have been some projects that have gotten some attention, right? The four small nuclear reactors in Darlington, that project has started. The Contrecoeur terminal port expansion, that has started. The Mackenzie Valley Highway project will start this summer. It looks like there might be an announcement being made today that could indicate that one of the other major projects, I think it was the Nouveau Monde graphite mine in Quebec, might be getting a bit of a boost or maybe getting a little more underway here. It says here that Prime Minister Mark Carney is booked for a midday visit to Saint-Michel-des-Saints, Quebec, to announce an important initiative to build a stronger, more resilient economy. According to his itinerary, that'll be at about 12:10 p.m. While the advisory offers no additional details on the reveal, it's worth noting that the region is also home to the Nouveau Monde Graphite's Matawin mine, which was officially referred to the Major Projects Office last fall, and which, as the Financial Post reported last week, quote, expects to formally greenlight plans this week to build one of North America's few graphite projects as countries seek to weaken China's dominance over the critical material. So another major project is probably going to get a boost. Either could probably be a funding announcement, or it's going to be announced that it's underway or moving to a next phase or something, and we're going to find that out. So those things are happening, and moving along. But one of the criticisms that existed at the time was that okay, this type of thing, C5, is great for projects that meet that criteria, or this major projects office is good for, I guess the projects that are chosen to go there. But what about all the other projects that we have, the proposals that are out there? I'm not sure what they number in the hundreds or the thousands. But all the other projects that maybe not be major national importance, but like for example, it's still important that Sunshine uh, LNG pipeline expansion that was just announced, that didn't fall on any major projects list. It didn't go, but it's still a big project that's going to have a lot of money associated with it. So there are other projects that might be able to benefit from a process that is more streamlined, let's say, because even though they may not be national importance, they could be projects uh, regionally that have a lot of importance, or sectorally could be key in moving things forward. So there was a discussion paper that was released about this, about what we could do. So nothing has been determined yet on this, but an overall discussion paper. And like I said, this announcement did cause some worry among people because, already especially those, who care a lot about the environment. And, unfortunately, as we're seeing, there's some public opinion polling that seems to be indicating that, as much as Canadians care about the environment, they are very uh, motivated and seized uh, with the urgency of the current moment as it pertains to the threat, and are a little more, yeah, we do care about the environment. It's not that we don't, but we care about not becoming a 51st or 52nd state a little more right now. Or we care a little more about the fact that uh, my future as an auto worker is not particularly secure right now, or somebody who works in the lumber industry as sawmills keep closing down, or right. These are, when you're affecting everyday people in their essential livelihood, right, it's harder to get people to think a little more selflessly, right? It becomes a situation of, please make sure that you put on your own mask, secure your own mask before you help someone else here. And a lot of people are feeling that they're being put in that situation. So therefore public opinion is shifting. It's not necessarily turning against the environment, but people are being faced with trade-offs, and the immediacy of their need for survival now is taking precedence. So for those um, who still, despite everything that's going on, still see that the overall climate problem is existential, regardless of what's going on now in the immediate, and that we have to focus on that because there are two ways of seeing the world, right? For people, um, these types of moves really um, make their cortisol levels go up, shoot up, because it's like, how much more loosening of the rules are we going to allow? Considering we've done a lot of loosening that hasn't yielded the desired impacts. The promise of that loosening hasn't been delivered, but it opens the door for worse things to happen. And we're not. Are we on track to meet those targets? Maybe, maybe not. And with the prime minister moving, who wrote a book on values, but moving more away on outward displays of this. So big regulatory policy, and seeming to more trying to embed uh, the action into the projects, each individually, one by one, to try to get some results. That's one of these things with the MOU, for example, with Alberta. They're saying, well, yes, we had this policy, but Alberta wasn't following it and had no intention of following it. So what good is the policy? We're never going to get the results. So if we change the policy, and let's say we do water it down, but we get increased compliance, we get a better result than we're getting now, or we would have gotten if we ensured on keeping a policy that nobody was even going to make an attempt to uphold. Is that ultimately better down the road, 5 years down the road, results wise? So it seems that the prime minister is sort of taking that bent. Not a lot of flash, not a lot of fanfare, but embed it in it. Yes, we are talking about another pipeline. Yes, but we are also talking about that big, wind project in Nova Scotia, and we are talking about more small nuclear reactors, modular reactors. We're talking about, mining more uranium. We are talking, we're even talking in some of the policies that have come down, what the role of natural gas would be if natural gas is replacing uh, coal or oil in the meantime as a step towards electrification. And is there a bigger role for that? And even that, has a lot of people going, well, but it's still something you burn, yes. But again, do we go for purity and get a lot of people's backup? Or do we say, okay, fine, there's a step. This is better than that. Yes, it's not ideal, it's not great, but it is markedly better. It is measurably better. And if you are doing that on the way to electrification, we'll make room for that, right? Then, of course, makes the argument, but once you make room for that, they can promise they're going to get to electrification, but what if they don't? And again, that is a real concern. People do renege on deals, right? So you got this big mix. So here, with regard to this, there is a discussion paper that is being proposed, and we've heard a lot about, the government wants to do this, and what could be the potential benefits, and what could be a lot of the drawbacks, particularly when it comes to environment. But not a lot of people have been talking about the discussion paper. So I went out and I found it, and it's not that long. So I figured, again, uh, as a service, I would bring it to you, so that way you can have an idea of what is actually going to be discussed. This is no decisions have been made. This is the platform from which we are launching, a bit like the Sovereign Wealth Fund, where people are wondering about airports and ports. Will they be sold outright, or will it be a situation where the government will sell, maybe not more than a 35% stake in it for people who would want to get in, but still remaining a controlling interest? Or would there be a law that, it could only be sold to things like, Canada Pension Board and, Alberta Teachers Pension and stuff like that, those types of groups? There could be some restrictions on who's allowed to buy into, or that type of stuff, right? We don't know yet how far they want to go. So, we'll see, what happens. But this year, there's a discussion paper on what's called Proposed Legislative, Regulatory, and Policy Reforms. So here it is. It opens up with a contextual piece that provides some context, and it says, in the 2025 speech from the throne, the Government of Canada promised to make decisions on major projects within 2 years. Canada must build a new infrastructure to strengthen trade, grow economy, and compete globally. Impact assessments and regulations are important because they protect the environment and ensure major projects are developed sustainably. To achieve the government's objectives, changes to laws, regulations, and policies are being reviewed. The federal government has been working together with provinces and territories, project proponents, and Indigenous communities to find ways to make the decision process more efficient and predictable. The government has also heard from Indigenous peoples about the need to improve the major projects assessment process during discussions led by Crown Indigenous Relations and Northern Affairs, as well as federal departments and agencies. Indigenous peoples have consistently raised concerns about gaps in consultation. They've highlighted the need to engage with them early, respect their cultures, and align with their governance and decision-making systems. The Government of Canada is committed to including Indigenous perspectives and priorities in shaping the changes to laws, regulations, and policies. This process will involve meaningful engagement to follow Canada's commitments under the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act, or UNDA, ensuring Canadian laws respect the principles of the Declaration. So I'm reading this and I'm seeing understanding, at least with regard to Indigenous peoples, that the government is really, really aware that they screwed up on C5 based on the consultations that they had afterwards. They probably got an earful, couple of earfuls, maybe, and that this process here, given that there's a discussion paper and more time to get to it, is intended to include way much more of that and to help resolve that particular piece here. Then we move to the rationale. Major projects in Canada can sometimes face a complicated and time-consuming decision process. There are issues like duplication, poor coordination between government departments, and consultation processes that can be difficult for Indigenous peoples and project proponents to navigate. As a result, building major projects like mines, ports, airports, pipelines, nuclear facilities, and transportation infrastructure is often slow, expensive, and confusing. In the past, it has often taken more than 5 years for a project to receive the federal decisions necessary to begin construction. Canada is competing with other countries such as the United Kingdom, Australia, and the United States to attract investments in large-scale projects. These countries are already working on ways to speed up their decision processes by simplifying steps, reducing repetitive consultations, combining decision-making authorities, and allowing quicker decision-making. This proposal would create a simpler, more coordinated process in Canada where federal decisions for major projects could be completed in shorter timelines. It would help project proponents successfully build projects that boost Canada's economy while ensuring environmental protection, respecting Indigenous rights, and supporting meaningful consultation with Indigenous peoples. And then there's an overview of the proposals here. The Government of Canada plans to make changes to laws, regulations, and policies to meet its commitment to ensure project decisions are made in a timely manner. The goal is to make it clear that major projects can be built efficiently in Canada while maintaining strong environmental protections and respecting the rights of Indigenous peoples. So the first step in the overview, or the first overview of proposal here, is that of things that they want to change here. That the federal review and decision making will take place in no more than 1 year. The Government of Canada is proposing legislative changes to ensure that federal impact assessment and permit reviews happen at the same time instead of one after another. This process would begin at the notice of commencement if an impact assessment is required or when a permit plan is required. If no impact assessment is required, so either there's either to get a permit for a permit plan for a project, it seems that there's some of them that will require an impact assessment and some that don't. There. Proponents will have 1 year to submit their finalized studies and information. However, if proponents need more time for a specific permit, they will have the option for more time for decision. For its part, the federal government's review and decision-making timeline would take no more than 1 year. It is proposed that legislation be amended to formalize these targets. Problem that I have with this is that as an aspirational goal, I see it as something that would be firm in law. I see it a little differently because just sometimes things take time. There are certain things that might not be able to be studied within the case of a year, and so I'm not sure what provisions will be put in place. I'm sure that this might happen. When you come to discussions, people say, well, yes, this is very nice, but on the ground, if we were to do this type of project, this type of assessment literally takes like 6 or 7 months on its own, and while we're doing, each level of government's doing them at the same time within a certain impact assessment. There are certain things that have to happen before other things. And, given that this particular step will take 7 months, there's no way that this one can be done in a time that's faster, than a year and a half. Right? It's just not. It cannot be done. Let's put it that way. So there needs to be somebody's probably going to come with a couple of examples of that, and that's probably going to have to be, massaged and whatnot to create room for that. So if it comes back as like a hard, fast 1 year, no matter what, no matter where it is, no matter how difficult the assessment is, that's probably not a good rule on itself. If through the discussion, then it comes and that gets, it's a little more aspirational, with a harder limit, but the harder limit may need to be set a little later, right? So hopefully that will be discussed. The Federal Review Coordinator of the Impact Assessment Agency of Canada would be responsible for ensuring that impact assessments and federal permits stay on track to meet the timelines. Federal permit applications would be reviewed concurrently with environmental assessments, subject to the option for proponents to extend or delay timelines. For projects requiring a review from the Canadian Energy Regulator, they will be responsible for coordination. While deadlines will not change Canada's duty to consult Indigenous communities or fulfill obligations under modern treaties, we are creating a process that will lead to earlier and more coordinated consultation and accordingly better and more efficient outcomes for Indigenous peoples and proponents alike. Again, my recommendation would be is if this is something that you are doing, please do this part in consultation. Don't just come up with your first proposal and present it and give it to them to react. Actually say, hey, it seems that we need a better process to fulfill our duty to consult. Come to the table and let's discuss how we form it. That's the best way to ensure that what you're actually going to come up with is something that's going to stand the test of time. Don't go out in your own corner and propose your own thing, because all you're doing is recreating the same damn dynamic. One Crown consultation process. That's the second principle here. The Government of Canada has heard from Indigenous peoples that the consultation processes for major projects needs to be improved to avoid overall consultation fatigue. Yes, because usually it's the same people who are being consulted about a lot of things. To address this, the government is proposing changes to create a Crown consultation hub within the Impact Assessment Agency of Canada. This new consultation hub will work with the federal departments and agencies to ensure that each Indigenous group affected by a major project goes through one clear and coordinated consultation process for each project. This will replace having multiple overlapping or redundant processes. The new consultation approach will apply only to major projects. The consultation hub will, quote, help departments and agencies identify, resolve, mitigate, or support accommodation of Indigenous issues of concerns early, where possible, better coordinate with provincial consultation efforts, provide guidance to federal officials and project proponents about how to engage with Indigenous communities in a meaningful way, with the goal of ensuring free, prior, and informed consent from Indigenous peoples. In the territories, the Canadian Northern Economic Development Agency will continue coordinating federal and Crown consultation efforts. As for transportation projects, Transport Canada will set up a transportation project office. This office will improve federal coordination and consultation on transportation projects not subject to an impact assessment, listed under the Building Canada Act or those supported by the Canadian Northern Economic Development Agency. The third principle here is one project decision. To improve faster and clearer project decisions, the Government of Canada is proposing legislative changes for certain projects listed under the Physical Activities Regulations of the IAA, that's the Impact Assessment Act. These changes would allow one federal decision document to be issued by the Minister of Environment, Climate Change, and Nature. This document would include all federal decisions required for a project to move forward. Experts in different departments would continue to review the project and provide advice and recommendations for the decision. Permits would still be issued under the applicable laws, and enforcement would still be handled by the responsible departments. Throughout the process, the Federal Review Coordinator would make sure everything stays organized and on track. The Minister of Environment, Climate Change, and Nature would still determine whether any negative federal effects of a project are considered significant. If they are, a joint decision would be made with another minister responsible for the relevant sector. For instance, for a transportation project, the Minister of Transport would make the final decision together with the Minister of Environment, Climate Change, and Nature. Or the two ministers could decide to refer this determination to the Governor and Council. This approach ensures that decisions balance environmental, economic, and other important considerations while continuing to follow existing rules about what is in the public interest. Permits not included in the proposed one-year federal review and decision timeline will not be part of the single decision, but will proceed through the assessment and permitting processes one after the other. These changes will not apply to the Canada Energy Regulator, which will be making decisions for pipelines, transmission lines, and offshore energy projects, or the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, which will be making decisions for nuclear and uranium projects. The fourth principle is single project authority. To give investors more confidence in the project decision process, the Government of Canada is proposing to assign responsibility for certain projects to the federal organization with the most expertise, namely, that's the Canada Energy Regulator would handle reviews for international interprovincial pipelines, transmission lines, and offshore renewable energy projects, while the CNSC, which I do not remember what it is here, the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission would handle reviews for nuclear and uranium projects. Projects overseen by the CER would no longer require a separate impact assessment under the IAA. The Governor and Council would make the decision about whether the project is in the public interest for pipelines with lengthy routes. To reduce risks and costs for investors, this decision would be made at the beginning of the decision process before the Canada Energy Regulator completes its review of conditions and routing details. For smaller projects, the Canada Energy Regulator Commission would make the final decisions, and timelines for those decisions would be reduced. For nuclear and uranium projects, the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission would be responsible for conducting the impact assessment under the IAA, and the CNSC would also determine whether the project would cause significant negative federal effects. If the effects are considered significant, the project would be referred to the Governor and Council through the Minister of Energy and Natural Resources to decide if it is in the public interest to go ahead. For nuclear projects already in progress, if a project is still in the planning phase, where notices have been issued but full studies haven't been submitted, the decision process will shift to the Canada Nuclear Safety Commission. If a project is already in the more advanced impact assessment phase, all the necessary information and studies have been submitted, or if the project proponent prefers to continue with the existing process, it will continue under the current impact assessment process coordinated by the IAAC. So this one, this port here is saying that for projects that are already in the pipeline and that are fairly advanced, you won't have to start all over again. This particular process will be grandfathered for you if you want to remain in it. But for all projects that have not, where the full studies have not yet been submitted, that is going towards the new process. The IAAC and the CNSC will work together to ensure a smooth transition for projects. Extra care will be taken to meet the government's duty to consult with Indigenous peoples during this process. The government would also direct Natural Resources Canada to review Canada's regulatory and legislative framework for nuclear projects to identify areas for improvement, including streamlining processes and reducing decision timelines. Further assessment will be undertaken with Nova Scotia and Newfoundland and Labrador to determine how to achieve a single regulator model for projects under the responsibility of the Canada Nova Scotia Offshore Energy Regulator and the Canada Newfoundland and Labrador Offshore Energy Regulator. And then the fifth principle is to enable economic zones through regional impact assessments. The Government of Canada is proposing legislation to create federal economic zones. These zones would cover areas like transportation corridors, telecommunications networks, energy production and transmission, and industrial regions. Setting up these zones ahead of major developments would remove the need for separate project reviews, make the permitting process similar. Let's try that again. Make the permitting process simpler and reduce risks for investors. Under this proposal, the Governor and Council would have the authority to decide that certain developments within specific zones are pre-approved, subject to conditions for the projects themselves. The zones and the types of activities allowed in them would be clearly defined. Consultation with Indigenous peoples would be a key part of this process to identify both impacts and opportunities. Additional collaboration would take place to determine the specific conditions for development within these zones. Coordination with provinces and their agreement will also be essential to make these zones work effectively. This cooperation between federal and provincial governments would allow projects to be fast-tracked under both federal and provincial regimes. The sixth principle here are streamlined and efficient regulatory environment. Some federal laws have rules that can make regulatory processes slow, repetitive, and less flexible. To improve this, the Government of Canada is proposing changes to streamline these processes, including, for example, narrowing the types of activities that require navigation permits, making permits for fish and fish habitat more flexible for offsetting, replacing, or compensating for environmental impacts, and for permits related to disposal at sea. Transferring certain decision powers from the Governor in Council, which is Cabinet, to the relevant minister to speed up decision making. Ensuring project requirements are technically and economically feasible to avoid inflating construction costs and the time it takes to build a project. Allowing some early construction activities to start before an impacted decision is made if necessary permits are approved. See, that's something that makes people a lot of very, very nervous. That's something that allows, says, well, you haven't got all the permits yet, why not? You haven't been approved, but yeah, go ahead and start building. And what if the permit is not approved, then what happens? So, or does that mean that the permit gets approved no matter what? That's the type of thing that makes people nervous here. Authorizing the Minister of Environment, Climate Change and Nature to adjust impact assessment conditions in exceptional circumstances. Authorizing the Minister of One Canadian Economy to adjust environmental conditions for projects of national interest when needed, which is something that's already in C5. Giving the GIC limited power with a high threshold to be met, the exempt specific projects from the application of the jeopardy test for species at risk, but only if it's in the public interest and if the proponent has made all reasonable efforts to avoid or reduce impacts on at-risk species. This particular one is getting a lot of attention in the press right now because when we're talking about species at risk, all you need to do if you are predisposed to being against this type of loosening of rules is write some articles about how these rules are not good. Focus on this particular one here when we're to exempt specific projects from the application of the jeopardy test. when it comes to species at risk. Put a picture of a blue whale along with the story, and then now you have emotional impact, right? Whereas the federal government has nothing but bureaucraties and a process that is still at the discussion paper stage, so nothing to say. This one in particular might make it very difficult for the government to sell this to the public. These decisions are often needed for projects to begin construction. However, the government understands that project proponents may also need federal decisions during the multi-year construction period. The government will continue to support a one project, one crown consultation process throughout construction to ensure that consultations are simplified for any regulatory needs arising during construction. So this one is sort of like, while the project's underway, we may discover that, oh my God, there's something else that we need to do. Don't worry, these same one project things will apply if there's something along the way that needs to be decided, that we encounter needs to be decided, rather than having to go back to the beginning. Let's see what here. These proposals will not change environmental approval processes set out in modern treaties protected by the Constitution. In certain regions, responsibilities are shared between the federal, territorial, and Indigenous governments. Many of these processes already align with the government's broader goals, such as one project decision and better crown consultation. The Minister of Northern and Arctic Affairs and the Minister responsible for the Canadian Northern Economic Development Agency will continue working with partners to identify ways to improve the Northern regulatory system for major projects. And then they have a list of some guiding questions for this discussion here. So questions regard to Indigenous engagement. 1, from your perspective, how could these legislative, regulatory, and related policy amendments be adjusted or expanded to better align with the rights and interests described in the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples? Are you aware of any intersections between the proposal and the rights and interests of First Nations, Inuit, and/or Métis as set out in the UN Declaration? From your perspective, how can the Government of Canada best work in partnership with Indigenous peoples to ensure that Indigenous perspectives, knowledge, and priorities meaningfully inform the implementation of these proposals? What lessons have you learned from previous experience with proponents and governments? What have they done well and not well for Indigenous communities? And what are your views, if any, on proposal number 2, the One Crown consultation process? With regards to public and Indigenous engagement, these are some of the questions that the government is seeking some input on. What opportunities do you see emerging from these proposals to improve the assessments and permitting processes related to building major projects? What are your views, general impressions, on these proposals to improve regulatory efficiency related to building major projects faster in Canada? And what do business and Indigenous peoples require to advance major projects within a shorter timeframe under these proposals? And then it says here that the next steps will be that the government will be moving quickly to introduce legislation following the engagement period, which I believe is planned to extend to about 4 months, I believe, which would bring us till sometime in September or October when the House comes back to sit. So there, you have it, kids and cubs. Those are the proposals that stem from that announcement made on, I believe it was that Friday last week? I can't remember which day. Actually, let's see if there's a date on this. There is not. So yeah, very. That's sort of like the overall discussion there with regards to the loosening of the rules or changes to rules or approval processes. And like I said, these will be not specifically only for major projects, but to fill the gap that everybody was talking about there, all the projects that are not major projects. And again, as we mentioned, if there is now a stigma associated with major projects getting that stamp, which means, oh, you get that stamp, well, automatically something's wrong, automatically go to court to try and stop that. Again, if we're talking about a prime minister who's a pragmatist and wants to get things over the finish line with minimal interruption, having a process that could apply to pretty much everything would definitely be much more helpful, and especially if some projects that could be major projects could get by on this process and not need the higher designation, that might actually be better at the end of the day for all involved in terms of getting the project completed more quickly and more efficiently. So we'll see how that leads and how that consultation process develops. But those are the terms that are out there with regard to how it is that the government would like to proceed. Now, I have no problem with things like making processes that are supposed to be subsequent concurrent, or that were subsequent concurrent. If one doesn't detract from the other. Again, if they are things that absolutely need to happen sequentially, because you need the information from the first process in order to inform the second one, have a little trouble with that. If it's the type of thing, however, where somewhere in the second process, the decision from the first one will be made, will be required in the first process, is far along enough that we can expect that result that will feed into the second process, then you can start the second process a little earlier, and hopefully those two decisions will meet in a just-in-time kind of manner. That could be a way to speed things up without necessarily losing something. So that's what I mean. They want to look at all this kind of stuff and try to see where can we cut time by having certain things overlap, if we can. And that could be a way, right, to do it that would indeed have no negative impact, and could, when you save a couple of weeks off one step and a couple of weeks here, and so at one point, that ends up being real time, right? So, or if something has been sent up from one place to another, but it's not sitting in the inbox for 3 weeks before somebody takes a look at it. It's like, oh, that thing you were waiting for, yeah, it's here. Yeah, you might want to readjust it and put that at the top of the priority list and do that now. That again saves time. So there are lots of ways where time can be saved. If we're looking at this fairly and not trying to create some drama. There's lots of places where this can happen. Having much more effective consultation process with First Nation, Inuit, and Métis peoples at the beginning, embedded at the beginning of the process, is going to save a lot of time with not having to go to court on projects. That will definitely get things improved a whole lot more quickly. So there are some legitimate things here, but there are other things, for example, like, do we really need to perhaps make exceptions to the Endangered Species Act? That really required here in order to get some projects across? Um, Stuff like that, however, very legitimate questions and very necessary questions and need to be asked, right? So we'll see. But on the whole, as an overall discussion paper, giving you the basis, the platform from which we're jumping off for what's going on, it stands pretty decently in terms of being open and transparent about what's being proposed, and the quest, the objective to seek consultation and input. But of course, as always, devil's in the details, and it's the final project that matters. And not only that, but how this consultation is done, right? This consultation needs to be meaningful, and the people who are being consulted need to feel that it is meaningful, regardless of intents. You can claim for yourself to say, well, it was meaningful, but if the people being consulted don't feel like it was not. So, here, Kid Bucky's saying, exactly. All too often, regs and guardrails are dismissed as red tape. Yes. Well, that's the other thing that we need to, again, as we often say on the show, right? When people are going, oh, we need to reduce red tape, we need to reduce regulation. Regulation and red tape is often synonymous with citizen protections. So let's not be all that eager to reduce red tape and regulation as an overall principle. But these are the types of things that need to be surgical, where you go in and you study something very, very specifically, and you find very specific places where you can cut and not stitch things back together, and not necessarily damage the process, rather than going in and just like carpet bombing, like a whole phase of a project. This is definitely something that requires stuff to be very surgically and precisely done. You can't be sloppy or lazy with any of this, or else it's just, again, you're just going to end up in court. and you'll probably lose. So as well, that's the one thing about our court system here. At least it's pretty good in terms of the check and balances. Like, no, I understand you need to do this quickly. I understand that your motivation. I understand the economic thing, but you still have to do it the right way. If you refuse to do it the right way, it's just not going to happen. Now, our courts are often helpful and give you then a guide or a path forward to follow so that you can do it in a manner that would satisfy the Constitution. But then you have to want to do it. And, well, this government, again, this is where I have problem with putting things in law, where this government may be showing a definite openness to do it. But once you change laws, those laws are there when governments leave. And we know, again, from what we are seeing here, it would appear that, at least from the Canadian conservative side, when it comes to projects, and we're talking about conservative politicians and conservative people, the mere concept of sitting across the table from Indigenous people to discuss things seems to want to make them break out into hives. So, again, you always want to be careful when you're changing laws, because you have to change them in such a way, or regulations, you have to change them in such a way that the next guy can't come in and, drive an 18-wheeler through your living room. So, okay, let's see what we're doing on time here. 1:50. That's getting a little into it. Did I hit everything I wanted to hit in this particular episode? Plan to double our electricity grid. I did not get to the plan to double the electricity grid on this particular episode, so I might have to move that one to the next, and then I might be able to touch upon the MOU as well at the same time. So, kids and cubs, I am going to wrap up this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. But I do believe that today, because we do not have family, and my Beaver sweetie also told me we're not getting the new engine today. It appears that they are a little bit behind on schedule over there, and they asked them to come in tomorrow instead. So, darn. That was the conferencing, actually, that we were talking about, which we had to rejiggle things for tomorrow and today, given that our plans got upended as the day started. So, given that we will not have to do that today, I might be able to sneak in the double beaver today. I'm still a little too stiff neck-wise, although I'm feeling much better, to make it a tennis day. And interestingly enough, even though it started gray and rainy, right now it's a beautiful sunshiny, and it's actually a little humid in here. The sunshine has definitely come up. So I think today might be the day that I will have the opportunity to do a little bit of double beaver for you. So let's say, since it's getting close to 10, let's say I take a couple of hours to rehumidify, to get a little bit of a nosh, rest my voice for a bit, and come back at noon. Let's try that. And because I do have the material prepared for them, so I don't need a lot of prep time. I just need a little rest, because 4 hours talking in a row is a lot. So let's do that. Double beaver, noon Eastern time, where we will have more for you. We will have the stuff with regard to the energy, is it regulations? Just want to make sure that I got that right, and look a little bit at the MOU as well. And hopefully, if we have some time, those extra little things that I talked to you about at the beginning of the show, the stuff with the how the U.S. ambassador might have a link to the leaked list, and the United States trying to hand conservatives an issue by creating the semblance that the prime minister might be weak on defense. So, kids and cubs, that's the end of this Kitaviji Afternoon Delight. I love you guys. Oh my God. Ah, that's fantastic. Okay. Yeah. And you know what? Here, uh, because it's my birthday, double beaver means that you're my gift. I get you twice today. There you go. How is that? So, kids and cubs, that's the end of this episode. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring, and word of mouth is priceless. So please, please, please tell your peeps and poops all about us. We really appreciate it when you do. Um, let's see, what do we have? If you would, let's see. Ooh, Kid Saucy going. I may or may not be here, depending if one of my support workers comes. It's usually why I don't make many afternoon shows. Totally, totally understandable. Totally understandable. Family first, always. Um, all right. Let's see. I forgot where I was in my outro. I just threw myself. What do I do after I say this is the end of the show? Oh yes, right. How to support us? Indeed. If you can, kits and cups. Oh, thank you, thank you. It already is a happy birthday. I got to spend time with you, and I got some morning cuddles. So my day's already complete, and there's cake waiting for me in the fridge. So it's a good day. It's a good day, and of course, calorie and guilt-free cake, of course. Kids and cubs, if you would like to, please support the show. You can scan this QR code if you're not watching us on our YouTube channel, and please go there, click on our buttons, like, share, and subscribe. Really helps us with the algorithm. Thank you so much for all of your support there. Means the world to us. And if you would like to support us financially, we would be very grateful to receive some birthday hot chocolate by scanning that little QR code. That will bring you to our coffee page. That's coffee, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver. And there you can make a donation to the Eager Beaver Lodge's Emergency Hydration Fund because, as we know, a moist beaver is a very happy beaver. And a beaver who is particularly moist on his birthday is a particularly happy birthday beaver. And who doesn't love birthday beaver? Right? I'm being silly. All right, kids and cubs. But yes, please scan that QR code. It brings you to our coffee page. You have a way to make one-time or monthly donations if you would like. And when you donate through our coffee page, we get 95 to 97% of your donation. If you're watching on our YouTube as well, you can buy a membership or a sticker or that type of stuff. Or make a super chat donation. We get about 70% of your donation there. And if you are doing the Buy Canadian thing, kids and cubs, as a lot of you are, I know you are, then truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com is our email address, and you can send a direct bank transfer, your bank institution to ours. 0 transaction fees, 0 fees, commission fees. Nothing goes to the USC Tech Bros. We get 100% of your donation. You get more beaver for your buck. And of course, kids and cubs, also remind you that I still have my weight loss thing going on to try to raise a little bit of money for our organizations, the Lonely Man Project in Newfoundland and Labrador, and the Men of the North Indigenous-led program in, I believe it is La Ronge, Saskatchewan. So, or I'm not sure how they pronounce La Ronge. So yeah, anything that you can give there. Again, gained an extra pound yesterday from the birthday stuff. So I'll have a little extra work to do. So you're on the hook for less and less as I keep on celebrating my birthday. So it might be a good time to get in on this deal. Just saying. Man, gee, I amuse myself so much. All right. Let's see, what else do we have for you? Yes, because democracy is something that you do. If you are in British Columbia, if you are a member of the BC Conservative Party, you already have your ballots. Please get them in so that they can be counted in time for the 30th. Do not be late with them if you want your vote to count. Very important. And of course, we have our 2 petitions, kits and cubs, that we have been talking to you about for a little while. We have House of Commons petitions. You go to ourcommons.ca and look up for petition E-7395, which calls upon the House of Commons to stop funding Stornoway as a private residence for the leader of the official opposition. And we are now at 10,885 signatures on that one, kids and cubs. And so just a little jump from yesterday, not a lot. So we will put that link in the chat for you there, and you can go there and support that. And then another one that we have for you, kids and cubs, is House of Commons, or rcommons.ca petition E7340, which calls upon the House to invoke its authority under Section 53 of the Supreme Court Act to refer the constitutionality of Alberta's Justice Statutes Amendment Act 2025 to the Supreme Court of Canada, and to direct the Foreign Influence Transparency Commissioner to immediately investigate the meetings between the Alberta Prosperity Project and the Trump administration. I don't know why that's not already happening, to be totally honest. I do not know why we need to petition for this to be happening. This should be happening already. So please do that. This petition, last time we chatted, I believe had 23,263 signatures, and we're now at 23,270. Actually, that first number may be incorrect, given that I had to reboot. It might have updated on its own. So let's just say what the signatures are today. I can't really speak with any authority to the jump at this moment, given the reboot. So I will put this one up for you in the chat. There you go. That's some good stuff. Ooh, did somebody post stickers? Oh, wow. There's a lot of activity. People have been sending people some jewels and high fives and sunshine and all of that good stuff, which makes me happy. I love it when the chat is animated. I love it. I love it. I love it. Let's see, because democracy is something that you do. Do we have other things? Yes, we do have one more thing. Apparently, there is a petition going around that somebody brought to my attention that is not a House of Commons petition. It's a change.org petition that has something to do with Doug Ford. So yes, it's called Fire Doug Ford, Recall an Elected Official. I'm not sure. I don't think that Ontario has recall legislation. I believe it is quite possible that that it's only Alberta that has that. That I don't know. It's something I've never actually looked into. But it says here that according to the deep dive, a change.org campaign demanding Ontario Premier Doug Ford's removal is asking an Ontario legislature for an outcome that voters cannot trigger under the province's current election rules. The petition, titled Fire Doug Ford, Recall an Elected Official, appears on change.org as a campaign address to the Ontario legislature. It currently shows 2,572 verified signatures, while the index change.org page identifies the petition as having been launched on April 3rd, 2019. Oh. The page calls Ford unfit to govern and asks for him to be recalled. Its own language leans on the concept of a recall election, a mechanism used in some jurisdictions to remove an elected official before the end of a term. The catch is that Ontario has not enacted a such system for members of the Legislative Assembly. Open Council's review of Ontario removal rules lists narrow routes for removing an MPP between elections, including expulsion by the legislature, legal disqualification, or resignation. A voter-led recall petition is not listed as an available process. So maybe that's why this signature didn't gather a lot of petitions, because it's asking for something that actually can't be done. It says here, Ford is premier because he leads the Progressive Conservative Caucus, which holds power in the legislature. Ontario voters do not elect a premier through a separate province-wide ballot, and they do not currently have a recall process that can remove an MPP or premier through a signature drive. Queen's Park has seen versions of the idea before. Bill 89, introduced in 2015 by then MPP Randy Hillier, proposed changing the Election Act to create a recall process for members of the Legislative Assembly. The bill was formerly titled the Election Amendment Act, MPP's Recall 2015. A similar proposal appeared earlier through Bill 39, the Recall Act of 2004, which also sought Election Act changes dealing with recall of members of the Assembly. The petition is circulating against a very different political backdrop than when it was created. Ford won re-election in February 2025, with AP reporting that he secured another mandate after campaigning around the threat of U.S. tariffs. Earlier this month, the opposition leader Merritt Stahl suggested Ford could end up in prison if a public inquiry exposed, quote, dirty deals regarding the Greenbelt controversy. So yes, this petition has started circulating. I believe, unlike the House of Commons petitions, they might not have a deadline date, from what I can see here. But when this article was written on Monday, May 18th, it had 2,050 verified signatures, and that has 2,572. So it didn't pick up a lot back then, but it's gaining some traction now. I'm going to include the link for those of you who do want it, but it is asking for something that there is no legal way to accomplish. It's still a way to send a message if one would want to. But this petition probably would have done better had it asked for there to be a recall legislation or process established, rather than asking for a recall of Doug Ford, which can't be done legally at the moment. What can be done, however, if you want to get rid of Doug Ford, because, let's do a little democracy, something that you do bonus here, is that you can, particularly if you live in a riding that has an Ontario Progressive Conservative MPP, handwritten letters, calls, emails, and request to meet, and then let them know during that meeting that if, as a caucus member, they do not initiate activity that would make the party ditch its own leader. Because that's the only way that we're going to get a new premier before there's an election. The party has to determine that Doug Ford is dead weight and throw him overboard. Like the Alberta Progressive Conservatives did to Alison Redford once, or like the UCP did to Jason Kenney. But the UCP, that was more a membership thing. This is caucus. Like the federal Conservatives did to Aaron O'Toole when they stabbed him in the back. Right? Caucus has to throw him overboard. That's the only way. So if you're in Ontario and you live in a riding that has an Ontario Progressive Conservative MPP, and you do not want Doug Ford to be the premier any longer, and you definitely don't want Doug Ford to finish his term as premier, then they are the ones that you have to put the pressure on and let them know that if they do not do this, that you are going to dedicate, and you're going to make it your mission to ensure that they do not retain their seat. Right? And if a lot of people do that, and enough people do that, then maybe there'll start being some infighting. But the thing with Doug Ford in Ontario does not change unless his cabinet throws him overboard, I guess, or natural causes, or a scandal so bad that he has to step down. Right? We're stuck with him. So, like I said, if anybody wants to fire Doug Ford, it has to be a process where caucus is convinced to throw him overboard, and that's where you need to apply your pressure and put your action. Okay. That's it for the democracy, something that you do. Words of wisdom. You know what? It's going to be my words of wisdom are going to be rejoice, Canada, because our dear, beloved Montréal Canadiens, Canada's team, did it in overtime. New hook again. I believe he's the one that may have done it and scored the game winner in Game 7 against Tampa Bay, if I remember correctly. But he scored the game winner in overtime, and les Canadiens, les habitants are we're in the semis, baby. Woo! That's all I'm saying. And the one thing in all our time together that I disagree with, or may have a difference of opinion with Kit Linda, is that it seems she is cheering for the Montréal Victoire, while I am cheering for the Ottawa Charge. But whoever you're cheering for, if you like good hockey, then Kits and Cubs, we were blessed because in the best of 5 final for the Walter Cup, the Montréal Victoire won their 2 matches at home, so the Ottawa Charge were on the ropes, and the Ottawa Charge did win yesterday. And that means that we all get more PWHL hockey. And whoever you're cheering for, that's always a good thing, at least in my opinion. So it's very, very, very happy times here at the Beaver Lodge. Not only birthdays, but 2 wins for the teams that I am personally cheering for. So there you go. And of course, in the PWHL, I'm not cheering that much more harder for Ottawa than I am for Montreal because it's an all Canadian final. So this little Beaver could not be happier. Just could not be. So there you go, kits and cubs. That's what I got for you. That's the words of wisdom. Drink in, bathe in the victory and in the glow, and get ready to keep on cheering because our dear Montréal Canadiens will have their next match on Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time versus the Carolina Hurricanes. And let's see if we can take them out too, all the way to the final, baby. And then let's bring the cup home. It's time the cup comes home. And for those of you who are hardcore hockey fans, of course, the tournament field has been set for the 2026 Memorial Cup. And the opening game is scheduled for Friday, May 22nd. Says the Canadian Hockey League. It is excited to announce the field for the 2026 Memorial Cup presented by Kubota, which will take place May 21st to 31st in Kelowna, British Columbia. In addition to the host Kelowna Rockets of the Western Hockey League, the 106th edition of the Memorial Cup will feature the WH champion Everett Silvertips, who took their series 4 matches to 1, which was a very effective final. And hopefully, I can remember it was that they defeated the Prince Albert Raiders. And as well, joining them will be the Moncton Wildcats, who took down the Chicoutimi Saguenayens in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League with a 4-2 series win there. And the other team in the tournament being the Kitchener Rangers, who swept the Barrie Colts 4 matches in the final to win the OHL championship. The 3 league champions secured their spots by capturing their respective titles, with Everett winning its first ever Ed Chenoweth Cup, Kitchener claiming its 5th J. Ross Robertson Cup, and the Chicoutimi earning its 3rd Gilles Courteau Trophy and first in 32 years. The opening game of the 2026 Memorial Cup, presented by Kubota, is scheduled for Friday, May 22nd at 6 p.m. Pacific Time or 9 p.m. Eastern Time when the host Rockets face the OHL champion Rangers. The complete tournament schedule can be found below in this article that I'm going to put for you in the chat if you want it. There you go. And then it says the 106th edition of the Memorial Cup marks the return of the CHL's championship event to the Okanagan for the first time since 2004. Held over 11 days, the tournament will see all the team champions join the Rockets in a 4-team round-robin tournament to determine the 2026 CHL champion. Every game of the 2026 Memorial Cup will air in Canada on TSN and RDS if you are French-speaking, with live streaming available on tsn.ca, the TSN app, RDS.ca, and the RDS app. In the United States, fans can watch every game on the NHL Network, while viewers outside Canada can stream the tournament live on Victory Plus. There you go, kids and cubs. A little extra yay for us today. That's all I got today. Words of wisdom, all the political stuff, the democracy is something that you can do. So, kids and cubs, I'm going to sign off by saying it could be a tough world out there. So please be kind to and gentle with yourselves. And we will see you again around noon, where I will be able to continue bringing you a little bit, getting through the backlog of news that has accumulated while things have been happening here, and doing my best to keep you informed. And with that, kids and cubs, it's time for the audience participation portion of the show. Could you please say, Mr. Beaver, on the count of 3, please cue the cock. Well, actually, please cue the birthday cock. On 1, 2, 3. Oh, I hear you. I hear you. Gee, birthday cock and birthday cake on the same day. I'm a lucky beaver. My heart. All right. Here's a little cock-a-doodle-doo just for you. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and The Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. All right. Don't have a Canadians who make us proud right now for you because it's the Montréal Canadiens, right? So I will just say amour et bisous, and we will see you very soon.